would you please join me in welcoming the President of Gresham College, the Right Honourable, the Lord Mayor of London, Alderman Alastair King.
Good evening, everybody. It's a great delight to be with you all here tonight. My name is Alastair King. I have the enormous honour to be the 696th Lord Mayor of London. It's a very ancient role, which many of you know, dating back to 1189, so 836 years. Even though it's a very ancient role, it has a modern function, and that is to be the global ambassador for the United Kingdom's financial, professional, legal and maritime services. These are remarkably good services, sectors of our economy. They employ 2.5 million people in the United Kingdom, which is 1 in 13 of the workforce, responsible for approximately 14% of national GDP. I have two roles in the office of Lord Mayor. One is to go and attract foreign direct investment into financial, professional, legal and maritime services here in the United Kingdom. And the second role is to try to encourage British businesses who are already existing and working in those sectors to raise their horizons, to be much more ambitious and to go off to the parts of the world that are growing at 5, 6, 7% and more in order to go and build their businesses. Effectively, I've got a mantra which some of you have heard already, but I still repeat it, and that is what I've been going around the world saying to anyone who will listen. If you want to insure against catastrophe, do it in London. If you want to raise debt or raise equity, do it in London. If you want to fall out with your partners, sue them in London. No, quite right. No, thank you. Thank you. Very true. But the reason I want to come here is to examine the position of risk. I think it's something that we need to spend a little bit of time on, given that we've got a real crisis of growth, and that's what the government want to achieve. And so therefore I really want to examine how do we get growth back into financial and professional, legal and maritime services here in the United Kingdom. Because the world is very much in crisis. How many times have we heard that over the course of the last 5 years? Half a decade coloured by disease, conflict, climate disasters, political turmoil, trade wars and economic shocks. There is a very good Chinese word for the word crisis, which is wei ji. Wei means danger. Well, ji has often been interpreted by the Western world to mean opportunity, but a more accurate interpretation is change point. Most of the dangers that we are facing are obvious, but at this change point, there is another hidden danger which we really do need to acknowledge, and that is the danger of the status quo. Seneca said, "It is not because things are difficult that we dare not venture. It is because we dare not venture that things are difficult." Over the centuries, international maritime trade via the Port of London transformed London into a global hub for commerce and finance that we know today. Those journeys, as you can imagine, were fraught with uncertainty. Would the ship arrive at the intended destination? Would it be taken over by pirates? Would it have its cargo end up at the bottom of the ocean? Marine insurance developed to mitigate those risks, but there was an understanding on all sides that they could never be eliminated completely. The only way of achieving complete elimination of risk would be for the ship to stay in the dock. In 2025, there are too many ships sitting in our proverbial dock. A combination of over-regulation and underconfidence has left us immobile. We dare not venture. And therefore, we do not reap the rewards. Today, I want to talk to you about my mayoral theme, Growth Unleashed, which seeks to reset the city's appetite for risk so that we can compete in this changing world. London remains the #1 financial centre in the world. We are the world's largest insurance centre. We account for 43% of global foreign exchange turnover. The city now has 678,000 workers, 25% more than before the pandemic. And last year alone saw a record 331 office leasing deals, welcoming the likes of HSBC and Clifford Chance back to the city. We have rich expertise in areas like green finance, asset management, very deep capital markets, and a strong, really strong talent pool. There are only a very few places in the world where you can get a high single-figure or low double-figure IRR return on a sustainable basis with good rule of law and a safe political environment. United Kingdom and London is one of those places. We have so much to shout about and so much to look forward to. Yet, we cannot ignore the wider global picture. From the rise of protectionism to the rapid development of the emerging technologies, the geopolitical landscape is changing with breakneck speed. Research from PricewaterhouseCoopers predicts that emerging markets are set to grow twice as fast as advanced economies over the course of the next 25 years, with China, India, and Indonesia predicted to be the first, second, and fourth place economies in the world, respectively, by 2050. The old order has passed away. In this new world, I strongly believe that the defining capability that will separate leading financial centres like London from their counterparts is not their size or their reputation, but their ability to manage risk. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, first, the obvious part. It's the ability to identify and respond to emerging threats. But second, and far more importantly, I would contest, is the ability to seize opportunities presented by our changing world. Whether that's embracing the white heat of the new technologies, like AI and cyber, forging relationships with new partners in the emerging markets, or acting as a safe harbour for international investment. London is very good, too good, I would argue, at the first part of the equation, protecting itself against threats. The cautious attitude that we adopted in the years following the global financial crisis in 2008 has developed in a full-blown allergy to risk. The UK gave the world antibiotics and the World Wide Web. But in recent years, we have, inadvertently perhaps, created a culture that stifles innovation and growth. Take our extraordinary fintech sector, for example. The UK is a global fintech hub with a vibrant ecosystem for companies like Revolut and Monzo, a highly skilled workforce, excellent universities, and many more elements besides. We have the human capital, but these innovative forms are struggling to obtain the actual capital they need to scale up and reach their full potential, at least actual capital here in the United Kingdom. Indeed, the UK has experienced the largest drop in capital raised by financial services and tech companies of any of the world's major financial centres. From £45 billion in 2021 to £27 billion to 2022, and just £20 billion in 2023. The steady gallop of unicorns created in the UK in years gone by has slowed, sadly, to a trot, from 36 in 2021 to just 6 in 2023. And while London remains the home to the second largest equity capital market in the free market economy, 88 companies delisted from the London Stock Exchange in 2024, with just 18 newcomers arriving to take their place. It should, though, be mentioned that the pipeline is much fuller due to the listing rule reforms enacted by the London Stock Exchange Group just recently. I also must stress But this decline is not unique to the United Kingdom. In the US, JP Morgan Chase, the boss there, Jamie Dimon, noted that the number of public companies that are there has dropped by 45% since 1996, actually a greater percentage decline than that experienced here in the United Kingdom. So we are not alone. But there is no denying that the United Kingdom investors have a tendency to be less ambitious and more risk-averse than their counterparts in places like the United States. Comparing earnings releases from the 50 largest corporations in the S&P 500 and the 50 largest corporations on the FTSE 100, McKinsey found that American businesses has twice as many references to ambition and 20% more references to the word innovation. The reports also highlight a skew in UK investor returns towards dividends, which suggests a strong pressure towards profitability at an earlier stage than in our US counterparts. In the US, past failures may be viewed as a rite of passage, McKinsey notes, whereas in the UK, they generate a concern among investors about their ability to protect against downside risk. I can give you a story to give you an idea as to what I'm talking about. A friend of mine is the CEO of a multinational financial services company that has both UK-based and Asia-based directors. She told me that if she gave me a transcript of a board meeting with the names of the directors redacted, I'd be able to tell with 100% accuracy which were the comments of the UK-based directors and which were the comments of the Asia-based directors. UK-based directors, their contributions would be suffused with the ideas of governance and of process. The Asia-based directors' comments would be suffused with eating other people's lunches. Whilst there is absolutely a place for governance and process, there is also a place for eating other people's lunches. I would suggest that there is more of a place for eating other people's lunches than currently exists. At a time when technology has never been more important, impacting almost every area of our lives, the UK is in real danger of becoming an incubator economy, a place where startups develop transformative products and services before selling out or moving abroad far too early in their development because of a dearth of domestic capital investment, with other countries cashing in on our work and our success. To help to combat this, I'm hosting a series of scale-up capital events with the Worshipful Company of Information Technologists, which brings the best British technology businesses seeking to raise between £5 and £30 million together with British investors. These events have been hugely popular, so there is hope. But we need a much more holistic approach. If we do not take a leap and back innovative British businesses, there will be no progress, no new jobs, no new opportunities, and most importantly, no growth. After the OBR halved its growth forecast for the year ahead to just 1%, we need growth more than ever before. As Winston Churchill said, private enterprise is not a predatory tiger to be shot or a cow to be milked. It is the healthy horse pulling the sturdy wagon, our economy, along. Private enterprise is the most powerful engine for wealth creation. The longer we take to realise this, the longer we withhold the support to that healthy horse, the more likely it is that the wheels are going to fall off our wagon. We must transform our attitude to risk to support our growth-creating firms. It is all very well for me to make that statement, but how do we move from a culture of safetyism to a culture of responsible risk-taking? This year, I've been encouraging business leaders to jump on planes, to bang on doors, adopt the new technologies, and put in the hours and effort to succeed. That hour and effort should be in the office, not working from home. But they need to feel empowered to do that. They need to know that if they go and make these connections, international partners will be able to invest in their businesses without facing undue complexity or cost. If we want investors and businesses to take more risks, the government and the regulators need to set the direction. First, by providing economic stability, which is the Chancellor's primary goal right now. The overhaul of the UK capital markets rules, the Financial Conduct Authority's new listing rules, the corporate tax roadmap, the modern industrial strategy, and the forthcoming financial services growth and competitiveness strategy, the National Wealth Fund, and the revamped Office for Investment are all positive developments. But second, we need to be regulating for growth and not just against risk. Regulators' actions have real-world impacts in terms of bank lending to SMEs, asset managers investing into infrastructure, and consumers saving enough for retirement. As the Chancellor said in her Mansion House speech in November, it was right that successive governments made regulatory changes after the global financial crisis. But that has gone too far. Excessive layers of regulation have increased the complexity and cost of doing business in the United Kingdom. Indeed, the FCA estimates that the total one-off direct costs firms incur to comply with the consumer duty obligations could be up to £2.4 billion. Incentives on politicians and regulators to avoid criticism where regulation fails, to mitigate risks fully, has encouraged excessive risk aversion in the system. Meanwhile, rules-based frameworks can limit regulatory discretion, making it difficult to strike the right balance between risk and growth. Our regulators are globally respected, but we need a smarter regulatory system, not only one that protects consumers and supports competition, but also encourages new investment, innovation, and growth. Building on the secondary competitiveness and growth objective for the Prudential Regulatory Authority and the Financial Conduct Authority, as contained in the Financial Services and Markets Act 2023, the government's new action plan for regulators is a step in the right direction. The plan will streamline financial service regulators' legal duties so they can better focus on driving growth and investment. We at the City of London Corporation are excited to partner with the regulators, His Majesty's Treasury and the Office for Investment to establish an investment hub that will make it easier for firms to navigate the UK regulatory landscape and the broader barriers to entry. The UK is already a top destination for foreign direct investment, and as we do more to generate domestic capital, this new service will only enhance our attractiveness to international partners. I was also pleased to see the Financial Conduct Authority acknowledge the need for change by making bold commitment to rebalance risk in its strategy for the next 5 years. These are all welcome steps, but there is absolutely no time to waste. We must go further and faster to reignite our appetite for risk and support growth. As part of Growth Unleashed, I'm working with senior practitioners to develop innovative ideas aimed at improving risk culture and regulation to support growth. There must be clear lines of distinction between good risks, bad risks, and risks for risk's sake risks. This work will help us get clarity on what risks are worth taking and why. We look forward to sharing these proposals later in the summer. In addition, on the 21st of May this year, we are bringing the Chief Risk Officers, or CROs as they are known, in all the big city businesses together, senior leaders, plus also policymakers and industry experts, in the inaugural Chief Risk Officers Summit here at Guildhall. As I mentioned earlier, the rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape demands that we develop stronger and greater agility and foresight when it comes to risk. For global business, the CROs will be at the heart of that work. Recent research work with City St George's, which I had the honour to commission in the run-up to becoming Lord Mayor last year, found that the role of the Chief Risk Officer has evolved over the years. Once seen as the no team, enforcing strict compliance, CROs are now strategic partners in the boardroom, guiding organisations through complex risk landscapes while fostering innovation, creating value and driving growth. This summit will allow the CRO community to make new relationships and enhance strategic risk thinking within the boardroom, as well as showcasing London's offer as the centre for responsible financial leadership. But CROs, Chief Risk Officers, are only one part of the jigsaw puzzle. For our plan to work, all parts of society must come together to embrace positive risk. And that includes your average saver. Like my predecessor, the 694th Lord Mayor of London, Sir Nicholas Lyons, I believe our pension system could play a vital role in supporting our most innovative businesses. Some of the major Canadian pension funds and Australian superannuation funds, the most successful pension schemes over the last 30 years, invest between 14 and 34% in private equity and infrastructure. In the UK, that figure, the equivalent figure, is just 5%. These sectors are missing out on investment and savers are missing out on better returns. So this year, we'll be building on the ambitions of the Mansion House Compact, a landmark agreement whereby 11 of the UK's largest defined contribution pension providers committed to allocate 5% of their default funds to unlisted equities by 2030 to support high-growth companies and boost pensioners' retirement pots. Conversations are gathering pace, and we will unveil our plans very soon. We are making very good progress along those lines. Alongside pensions, we need to mobilise the £430 billion of possible investments that are being held as cash deposits and not generating the returns that they could for savers. In the United Kingdom, only 39% of adults are active investors, compared with 61% in the United States. Research from Barclays shows a quarter of savers think that investing is too complicated, and nearly half think it is too risky. We need to simplify the investment process and help consumers understand the rewards and the risks of investing so that they can have a stake in the future of our economy. The government and the Financial Conduct Authority's Advice Guidance Boundary Review presents a good opportunity to improve savers' access to information. Finally, I have been using my platform to highlight the iniquity of stamp duty on UK quoted and listed shares, which is stifling investment into UK listed firms. It just cannot be right that investors are taxed when they are buying UK listed Aston Martin shares, but not when buying German listed Porsche share. This has got to change. Over the centuries, the city has survived disease, fire, schism, attack, economic shocks. Thanks to our ability to evolve, we have survived and we have prospered. We must now evolve once again. The world is changing, and amidst all this uncertainty, it is clear that the worst possible approach would be a course of action to state its business as usual. We can be wary of the way, the danger, and at the same time make the most of the G, the change point. As the Chancellor said in her spring statement, the UK has strengths which mean that we can act quickly and decisively in a more uncertain world. We are one of the world's largest economies. We are an ally to trading partners across the globe and a hub for global innovation. To paraphrase the chairman of Standard Chartered, José Viñals, London can be a winner as the neutral financial hub for the world, something that was reinforced to me just a couple of weeks ago during a trip to Canada and the United States at around the time when the announcement of the American tariffs on foreign imports was made. But while the UK can act as a safe harbour for international investment, at the same time, we must stop playing safe. We must embrace new risks to unleash the power of the private sector and secure desperately needed economic growth. So let's raise our sails and dare to venture. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Well, thank you very much indeed listening to me. It's much appreciated. We're now going to have a quick chat among some real experts in this field. I'm going to ask Debbie and Sam to introduce themselves, and then I'm going to ask them some questions. Debbie, would you mind introducing yourself, and then we'll ask Sam to do the same.
Hi, my name is Debbie Wasco. I'm a multi-exit entrepreneur. I've built 3 businesses over the last 20 years to scale and exit in the UK, and I am the co-chair of the Invest in Women Task Force, appointed by Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, with the objective of creating the biggest funding pot in the world to back female entrepreneurs. And we can go into way more detail on this, I'm sure, but just so we're clear, female entrepreneurs don't get backed in the UK. In 2024, under 2% of all of the venture capital invested in the UK went to back a business founded by a woman. And on the other side of the table, women don't get to invest. So there are very few women in venture capital, only 11% of investment committees are female. So I have one dog in the fight in the growth agenda, which is this: back more female investors with a mandate to back women-led and mixed teams, because women-led businesses deliver 35% better returns than male-led businesses.
Thank you. Great. Sam, could you just introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Sam Smith. I'm the founder of an investment bank called FinCap, now Cavendish Financial. I built that over 24 years from scratch to be a leading investment bank to small and mid-cap companies in the UK, and we listed ourselves in 2018. So we advised many hundreds of companies. I stepped down from there a couple of years ago, and now I have a portfolio career where I act on behalf of 5 different boards. I act as entrepreneur in residence for a couple of growth companies, and I've just launched a new business in September called the Superscalers, which is all about getting underrepresented founders to reach superscale, which we call 50 million turnover, as quickly as possible, and to help them navigate the system and to collapse the time it takes them to superscale so we can champion more underrepresented founders building really big businesses.
Lovely. Thank you, Sam. Could I ask you both a question? I'll ask for the answer from Sam first, then go to Debbie. You've heard my views in relation to injecting risk into the system. I'd love to hear your views. How do we strike the right balance between protecting against threats and the pursuit of growth?
Okay, so I look at this from an entrepreneurial stance. So over 25 years of my career, I've been very lucky to work with hundreds of entrepreneurs. And what I've realised is entrepreneurs are absolutely brilliant, and their day job is managing risk. And managing risk depends on stability of their environment, and that is completely out of their control. But why they're amazing at managing risk is because they do 2 things which are in their control. And those 2 things are they learn as much as possible about what's going on with this current situation, and then they have utter belief in their vision. So if entrepreneurs take too much risk, they obviously might go bust. If they don't take enough risk, they might grow too slowly. But in my 25-year career, I've never, ever met one company that has decided to eliminate risk from their business. And I think if we did, we all know what would happen to that business. Definitely wouldn't be growing, probably worse. And I think that has what's happened to the UK, really, is we've gone from managing risk to trying to completely eliminate risk. And that has some quite serious consequences. You know, instead of managing risk and focusing on teaching people to manage risk, we've eliminated it, and therefore we have the lowest level of financial literacy that we've ever seen, and we've got Gen Z more likely to buy crypto than invest in the stock market. Instead of managing risk, we haven't focused on the vision, where everyone is included in wealth creation. We focus on eliminating it. So for me, the biggest consequence of that is not everybody is involved in wealth creation. You can't be. And if I think to myself, back to myself at 18, I wanted to create wealth at 18. And just a bit about my background. So I was the first of my 13 cousins to go to university. I went to university on a student loan and a grant. And when I went to join my business, the first business, I got offered the chance to buy some shares in that business, which I took, but I didn't have any money. So I borrowed money from a bank that gave me the financing because they were secured, the loan was secured on the shares. And that's how I started to generate wealth. And that's how then when I managed the buyout of FinCap, I started growing that business. And I think now, that was 25 years ago. Now that would not be possible. I would not have had that same chance to create wealth. So I think what we've really done is stopped. We've lost sight of what we're trying to do. We've lost sight that people are trying to generate wealth. So I have a great phrase, which I loved using all the time whenever we got stuck in my business, which was, if you always do what you've always done, you always get what you've always got. And I think we now have to look and say, we just haven't got any growth. So we have to do something different. So I think it's time to take a leaf out of the entrepreneurial playbook, go back to a vision, setting a real vision of inclusion, setting a vision of, how do we actually educate about managing risk? How do we educate everybody about what that means and actually implement it so people have great financial literacy? But I think that vision for me is going back to basics of how does everybody everywhere generate wealth? How does everyone have a chance to succeed when they start with nothing? And how does every company and every founder from any background start, scale, super scale, and build a business that can stay in the UK? And I think that's a vision that we can all get behind.
Great. No, thank you. It's excellent input. Debbie, the same question. How do we strike the right balance between protecting against threats and pursuing growth?
I think that we've stopped backing ourselves as a country. And I think that I look around me in my life as an investor and I back only female-led businesses. And so many of those young women aren't here, don't want to be here, don't want to stay in the UK. I think somehow things have shifted versus the beginning of my entrepreneurial life 26 years ago, where this was the place to be, where capital could be accessed, where ambition was freely discussed. And I think that has changed, and it's changed for a lot of different reasons. I think your point is exactly the right point, and it was the point of Mansion House, which was, as a country, we don't invest in our own private capital versus the US, versus Europe, actually. And that objective of Mansion House to deploy £350 billion over 5 years into private assets in the UK, I think is transforming. But here's my concern. It's completely undiverse. So back to the point of the Investing Women Task Force, which I co-chair with Hannah Bernard from Barclays, who's in the audience. If we were able to allow women to scale businesses at the same rate as men, that's an extra £250 billion to the UK economy. And we are not doing that because women don't get backed, and on the other side of the table, women don't invest. And we have lost ground to Europe, not just America, but to Europe, because we have lost access to the EIF because of Brexit, and the EIF deploys capital along gender guidelines. So we have really lost pace. I think as a country, and the City of London has a really important role to play in this. As part of the growth agenda, we need to think about how we back more female investors with a mandate to back women-led and mixed teams. And we need to do that at pace and with significant amounts of capital. My concern is that 350 billion wall of money will not be invested in any diverse way. And so we have a very clear call to action to the 11 signatories of the Mansion House Compact, which is, even if each of you deployed 50 to 100 million in backing more female VCs with a mandate about women-led and mixed teams, that would be transformative. It would be something that we could genuinely say is the best in the world. And we've had an awful lot of support. We have our first female chancellor, which I think is important signalling. And we've had a lot of warm words and not very many handshakes. And we need help to have more of them, right? Because we're in the business of handshakes. Because more handshakes, backing more female-led and mixed teams, none of this is anti-men. But if you look at the data from last year, 80% of venture capital invested in the UK went to back a business without a woman in the cap table. 2% went to back a business led by a woman, and yet women-led businesses and mixed businesses deliver better returns. So to the men in the room, the ask is, for male founders, look around you and look outside your network and find women to work with. But for male investors, we need to have more Sams. And Sam isn't in a big category, sorry, Sam. But, we need more of them. And the way that we do that, we think, is by growth incentive. This is not a penalty. This is about saying, here is capital that we need to make available in the UK, in the city, with an incentive, because the bane of anybody's existence in this game, in this risk game, is raising money. It's a pain. So let's make it real, and let's, as the City of London, stand behind a diverse agenda that delivers high growth returns.
And Debbie, I'll ask the same question of Sam. Can you give me some specific examples of where you have taken what you might call positive risk during the course of your career?
Well, I only really know how to do that because I think that's what founders do. So I'm from an immigrant family. I'm third generation in the UK from a Jewish immigrant family where everybody in my family worked for themselves. And they were entrepreneurs. They would never have called themselves that because their businesses were incredibly humble, but they basically sold crap on the markets, and that's how they made their way here. And so I grew up around that. Sure. So I sometimes wonder, because I've had a very odd career, to start a business as a woman, aged 25, and to raise hundreds of millions of pounds worth of capital from all sorts of people where I've only ever really asked men for money. And the single determining point of my career success is I'm good at asking men for money. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had a career. So I think that you can learn through environment and osmosis to take risks. Because the things that I do, I think other people probably see as quite risky, and I don't see them as risky because I like a big swing. And I think as a country, and the culture that we role model and that we talk about, I just don't think there's enough swagger. I've always had quite a lot of swagger, and I encourage swagger. I think it's a good thing. No. So when you start a business, when you're young, and particularly my first business, which was a client services business, you're 2 client wins away from greatness and 2 client losses away from disaster at any moment. And I've, scaled businesses through 2007 and 2008, through the initial dot-com crisis in 2001. I've sold a business the day before the acquirer demerged in the US. I've done all sorts of things. But I think in the end, culture trumps genius every day of the week, and grit trumps genius every day of the week. And I think we need to get a bit grittier as a country, and I think we need to celebrate diverse people who take risks and encourage them to do that. I think risk-taking isn't the same as idiocy, but I think if we look at the globalization at the moment, and I know we're going to talk a bit about America, and you've quoted a lot of Churchill, so I'm going to give you some Churchill, which is never let a good crisis go to waste, right? And I think that's very much in an entrepreneur's DNA, and I think that's what we need to do as a country right now. Your point on pension funds is exactly right, that I think there's a confusion that private assets are riskier assets, and I think all the data shows that that isn't the case. We also have the mighty power of the London Stock Exchange Group, and I think the work that's going on there with Pisces and other projects that are looking at how can we give ordinary people access to greater risk and greater return as part of their portfolio. And I think it takes entrepreneurs and it takes a swing to deliver that in the UK, so more swagger.
More swagger, I like that. Fantastic. Now, Sam, when in your career have you taken what you might call calculated risk, where rather than reckless risk or not enough risk, where have you calculated it and you've then gone ahead and done that?
Many times, but I think the first one was when I left my first job at KPMG, a qualified as an accountant, left the day I qualified, and I was going to work for big banks. That was where I was going, which was where everybody went. And something happened at the same time as thinking maybe big companies aren't quite for me. I didn't realise I was an entrepreneur at this point at all. Was my friend that I was living with at the time got seriously, seriously ill, was in hospital. And I wasn't allowed to leave a particular client audit to go and see her. And that completely changed the course of what I was doing, because I said, okay, I'm just not going to go and work for any of these banks. I actually don't want to do it. I'm going to do something different. So I turned down all the jobs and took this job at a fairly unknown private client stockbroker, and they wanted someone to set up a new division. And I thought that was great. I didn't see that as a big risk. Not one person that I knew thought that was a good idea. Everybody thought, why are you not going to Goldman Sachs, Schroders, Morgan Stanley? Why are you not doing what everybody else is doing? Because that would be a really good low-risk option. They thought, you are mad. Not even one person thought it was a good idea. I thought the riskiest thing I could do was do something where I was really unhappy, didn't control my destiny, and got treated in a way I didn't think was right. So I decided there and then, I'm going to do something different. I'm never going to let anyone be treated like I was. I'm going to do something different in culture, and I'm going to do my own thing. And that was probably the biggest risk. And that decision was what built an investment bank from nothing. Yeah. So sometimes you have to just believe in yourself and do your own thing.
So I've set out a few ideas in my sort of speech in relation to encouraging growth, etc. You both created much value in your careers, but on a nationwide route, Debbie's talked about female and sort of bank businesses. Where else do you see opportunities to encourage growth here in the economy?
So I think vision and setting out a long-term strategy is really, really important. I think if you lose sight of that, any business that sets out without a long-term strategy and a vision of where you're going, you just can't grow. And I think we've lost a real vision of ambition and where we're heading. I think we also really need to see entrepreneurship as the lever. So yes, I think underrepresented founders are hugely important to that, but entrepreneurship is a massive lever. And if I look around at all the amazing work that's going on in entrepreneurship, we have playbooks. So the Scale Up Institute, for example, has got so much data on 36,000 companies in the UK that are fast growing. And that number has grown 30% in 10 years, while SMEs have shrunk 13%. So scale up businesses are growing. They're still growing. 9 out of 10 of them still say they're growing in this environment in this year. So these are businesses we should be backing. They have a whole host of recommendations about what we could do to supercharge that growth. We have Richard Harpin, who's started recently to want to double the number of mid-sized companies in the UK from 7,500 to 15,000. They generate employment, tax revenue, growth. He's got a playbook of how we can do this. We've got the Entrepreneurs Network with Philip Salter, who's got thousands of entrepreneurs with ideas and a playbook of how we increase numbers, starting, scaling, how we get companies to stay here. So all these playbooks are there. For me, it's about let's get everybody together, let's get the playbooks, and let's implement it with proper pace to get these things done. Yeah. And I think we would see things turn very quickly. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Sam. And Debbie, you mentioned female business founders and female businesses. What other things can we do to create growth within the economy?
I think the work that DCIT has done on AI and the AI recommendations is really important and powerful. And I think if you look at the capital deployed last year, even though it was less, 3.5 billion of investment went into AI in the UK. When I was at Davos earlier on this year, the one main reason to be cheerful was the UK conversation around AI from Europe and the US. So there was a universal acknowledgement that we had 4 of the best universities for AI in the world, that we didn't have the same war on talent as there was in the US, and we were going to be a very, very important part of the global conversation. Now, I'm not going to drop the women bit, I'm afraid, because that is my job. What's the however? Only 7% of founders in AI are female, and the average equity round size last year for a female founder in AI was 800 grand. men raised £5.3 million. We need to be really careful if the future of artificial intelligence is male, I would say. But I think it's something that we can be very, very good at here. And I think it's something that actually we need to get better at really commercialising university spin-outs. We do it. And I know that there are, we've got someone like Ed Bussey now at Oxford really focused on how we do it, but I don't think that we do it enough. I think my other point in terms of where is the growth, our creative industries, one of my boards is Channel 4. So I'm going to have my Channel 4 hat on for a minute. It's one of our biggest exports. And to bang the drum for UK creative industries, we are penalised versus our US competition. So I am in favour of a Netflix tax. I think we really need to preserve our creative output as a country. Film and telly is a way that we make a lot of money, and we're being absolutely hammered globally. So we need to support and celebrate what we have whilst we have it. So AI and creative industries, I would pick those sectors, but with diversity at its core. And
you mentioned globally, I think fascinating what you're saying. But we've seen the most extraordinary set of extraordinary changes in the geopolitics around the world. Or some people have described it as a rewiring of world capitalism through the tariffs, etc.
Sure.
What's your view in relation to what sort of opportunity does that present the United Kingdom?
Well, I think on tariffs we probably need to wait and see. I think it's been a really, really challenging few weeks. If I look across my business interests, I'm the exec chair of a business called the Better Menopause, which is a science-developed direct-to-consumer supplements business. We sell half of our products in the US, and it's been a massive scramble to figure out what that means. And it does raise a lot of questions about where you manufacture that we didn't think we were going to have to think about. That's for my business, but for hundreds and hundreds of others. I think the opportunity for the UK is to do what we're doing, which is to remain calm and to negotiate. But I think as far as we can tell at the moment, it's on goods, not services. So we have a huge output in the service economy, which is very global, whether that's professional services or advice. And I think really focusing on where those opportunities are for us in terms of our diverse output as a nation is important.
Thank you, Debbie. And Sam, same question. Extraordinary change in the global economy. What sort of opportunities does that present for the United Kingdom?
So obviously a lot is going on at the moment, and it is quite hard to keep up. But for me, and I've been thinking about it a lot over the last week in particular, I feel like this could actually be our moment. This could be like in a Monopoly game, the get out of jail free card. It could be the chance of a lifetime to say, why is the UK so good? Why is it so strong? And get back to selling our vision. Like, why are we so good? Because suddenly Europe and the UK are in focus from an investment perspective, from an infrastructure perspective, than they have for a very long time. So I feel like this is the opportunity of a lifetime that we have to take, and we have to take it at really fast pace to say what we're good at, which is, we are a stable country. We have got things going on that people are interested in. We are worth investing in, and I think it needs someone to shout, and for you to shout as quickly as much as possible.
I think also we're still cheap, right?
Sure.
And that's even though there are so
good value.
Many. Thank
good
you.
Value.
So many.
Not cheap.
That's why you're the man. I'm not. Good value, right? But so whilst there's a massive ongoing conversation about non-doms that goes across every facet of my working life, even in my charitable life, there are lots of concerns about that. But we are good value. We're good value to buy property here. We're good value to buy companies here. I think that will have a massive knock-on effect for international exits. When I look at my equity business interests, I think there'll be a lot of deals. And I think that we're well placed with high-quality products and services and good value globally.
Great. Excellent. Can I also just, in the last sort of 6 minutes or so, what I said there, the example, this great female chair of a business saying, Alastair, if I gave you the transcript of my board meetings, I've got Asian-based directors and UK-based directors. The UK-based directors, all their comments were effectively about governance and process. All the Asian-based directors about growth and going off and grasping new opportunities and all the rest of it. How do we change that? How do we get some form of balance there? Because effectively it wasn't even close. Effectively, there was almost groupthink on the UK-based director side, groupthink also on the Asian-based director side. Is that something? What steps can we take in order to make some form of change on that?
Is that your experience, Sam? What I would honestly say, because I sit on some big boards that I don't think would have had entrepreneurs on the board 5 years ago, and so my job's nothing like that. You don't put me on a board because of governance. I mean, I can kind of do it if I have to, but I think that mindset's changing actually, because I think that there's a recognition that conversations need to be about growth. And actually, I think it changes the role of the board and the role of the chair within the UK, that it can't just be about governance and reporting, that it genuinely has to be about the growth challenge. And I don't know whether that's because we now feel that we have to, but I would say in my board life, and Sam has one too, I think that those boards are changing a bit in terms of who people want and the conversations that they want to have around the boardroom table. What would you say, Sam?
I sit on growth company boards, so small, mid-sized companies for a reason, because I love growing businesses. And where I sit, those conversations are happening. I think when you get into bigger businesses, which is where I don't particularly want to sit on boards, because the conversations do come more around to regulation, governance. I've had friends who sit on FTSE boards where you've got 5 hours of chat about governance. That is totally destructive to trying to talk about growth. So what I'm thinking about is how to get out of this is, and I've started it with a couple of businesses, is do we need to think again about board structures? Like, are they really fit for purpose going forward if we want to grow? And we're introducing this concept called the entrepreneur in residence, which I think is a really interesting concept of not a board member where you think about all the risks and it's onerous to do that. So you get sucked out of growth into regulation, but have someone who is there as the entrepreneurial mindset to go, can we keep focused on growth? Where are the ideas? Where's the challenge? And throw things in there that people can debate. But I think board structures have become, with accounting regulations and general regulation, they have become sessions to manage risk or eliminate risk. They're not growth sessions. And I think there's a big difference between scale-up growth boards and large company and public body boards where things move to a eliminate risk mode and not necessarily growth mode.
Excellent. No, good points. Let's say, just in the last 5 minutes or so, say I'm Rachel Reeves and I phone you up. Sam, what couple of things should I do tomorrow? And how would you answer to try and get growth back into the United Kingdom economy?
So I think my first thing, I treat it like it was a business. So if I go into any business or any board, think, right, have we got an exciting vision? And can everyone get behind this? Because we have to think, this is the first time in history we've ever had 5 generations in the workforce. First time ever. So you've got lots of different people with lots of different views. You have to collect them. And people are getting more vocal. So I think my number one thing was sit down very quickly with the right interested parties and communities and say, what is an exciting vision that relates to everybody? And I think that has to be not just the word growth, growth, growth. We have to have something exciting behind it. People have to want to get up and it means something to them. So I think the first thing I would go back to basics, come up with a vision, come up with a long-term plan, and then start putting money towards entrepreneurship everywhere I could. So I think there are some big things going on at the moment. We talked about the non-dom rules. I think you change that very quickly. There's stamp duty on the UK market. You change that very quickly. There's lots of things to do with the stock market to get that to be our shop window. That should be a shop window where we are ambitious and we go out to the world and we celebrate it. There are lots of quite quick wins. Tax breaks can be done very quickly at the entrepreneurial level where you're backing proper growth companies. There's all these great reliefs, but you can do things at pace, but you need to talk to the right people. You need all the people in the room who know what they're talking about, who are on the ground, working with businesses, working with female founders, because their issues are different to other founders, working with founders from different backgrounds who don't understand the system. They're all in different places. And I think what we generally do too much is talk to the large businesses, talk to the large pension funds, who, they have a lot of control, a lot of power. So I get it. They need to be on board. But there are many other people that need to be included in this debate who have some great ideas.
No, thanks, Sam. Debbie, same question to you to end the session.
Yes.
I'm the Chancellor.
Yes,
Debbie,
that really did happen.
I'm sure it did. Fantastic.
So I'm going to make the pitch to finish off backing female investors. So our answer to what can be done is actually quite simple, which is to create the biggest funding pot in the world to back female investors with a mandate to back women-led and mixed teams. And the female investors bit is really important. A female investor is twice as likely to back a female entrepreneur as a male investor. So we need to create systemic change in the way that we allocate capital in the UK in order to drive returns. And the way that we need to do that, the wind beneath our wings is the Mansion House Compact, right? You know it is. And currently, in terms of the Investing Women Task Force, we secured an initial 255 million commitment with a target of 250. So you see what we did there. Through 7 institutions signing up to commit capital, but only 2 of the Mansion House signatories. And what we want to do, and what the Chancellor is giving us genuine air cover to make happen, is for the industry to join hands, right? We are better together. And we want the Mansion House Compact signatories to deploy capital into a fund of funds run by women in order for that capital to back more women-led and mixed teams. Women-led businesses can scale, do scale, deliver great exits, deliver great returns for funds and for individuals, but not enough of the time because they don't get back. So with our first female Chancellor in place, the ask to the Mansion House Compact signatories and other institutions in the City of London is to be part of this. Because if women-led businesses were able to grow at the same rate as male-led businesses, that's 250 billion to the UK economy.
Fantastic. Well, just to end, there is the Mansion House Compact 2 coming up, which is under a detailed discussion, and we hope and we'll come up with something I think really good fairly soon. And so we'll be announcing that over the next couple of months or so. But we'd love to get your views on that when it comes.
Thank you.
Lovely. I'm going to hand over, please. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for your excellent response.